The ocean can be a very difficult place to live. The animals living in the seas have to deal every moment with finding food and protecting themselves from predators. There are many ways of hiding, defending, and feeding, and every different technique has advantages for different animals. In this film, we will explore some of the adaptations used by various sea creatures to survive. Among the adaptations for survival in the sea, camouflage is one of the most common and widespread. In the North Atlantic, a fish called a sea raven blends in with the seaweed on the bottom. It has a rounded, blob-like shape and many fleshy projections hanging off in all directions. As a reaction to an approaching animal, the sea raven lies very still, putting its faith in its camouflage. Only when the sea raven is certain that it has been seen will it swim away. The sea raven has relatives all over the world which look similar and use the same technique. The related Caribbean scorpionfish tries to look like a rock covered with algae. The seahorse is another camouflaged fish. The long tail of the seahorse allows it to hold on to sponges and soft corals. The tube-like body of the seahorse looks just like the things it lives near, so the seahorse blends right into its surroundings. Frequently, the frogfish can be encountered near the seahorse, since they share similar habitats. A frogfish looks like a sponge. This is no coincidence, since the fish spends its time sitting very still on a sponge, flicking a lure back and forth in front of its mouth. This lure, called an elysium, is actually a modified part of the frogfish's dorsal fin and is the key to getting dinner. When another creature mistakes the frogfish's elysium for a tidbit of food, the frogfish will engulf the creature in its enormous mouth. Frogfishes can eat animals as large as themselves and therefore put their camouflage to use both for defense and to get food. Camouflage isn't confined to bottom-dwelling animals. Sharks have camouflage as well. Instead of protecting them from predators, shark camouflage helps them sneak up on prey more effectively. The shark's camouflage is called countershading. The dorsal surface of the shark is dark in color, so it's difficult to see from above against the dark water below. The ventral surface of the shark is lighter, so it blends in better with the lighter waters above when viewed from underneath. The skate, a close relative of the shark, has evolved into a flat shape to stay low on the bottom of the ocean. This form of camouflage helps protect it from being seen by larger predators. Many skates, like this South Pacific blue spotted skate, also bury themselves under a thin layer of sand to perfect the concealment. Some animals have camouflage which can change with the animal's surroundings. For example, the octopus can change colors with special color-changing skin cells called chromatophores. Using these chromatophores, an octopus can change color right before our very eyes in under a second. By changing colors, the animal can blend into different surroundings and lighting conditions. Instead of camouflage, some creatures have adopted the opposite technique. Rather than attempting to hide and blend in, these animals prefer to stand out. Aposematic coloration is a warning coloration which tells other animals to stay away. The bright orange aposematic coloration of California's Garibaldi is a warning that you are entering its territory. Some creatures stand out in order to attract a mate. For example, the brightly colored angelfish probably has such beautiful coloration to attract the opposite sex. To the angelfish, attracting a mate is more important than blending in. Angelfishes therefore depend on their quick reflexes and high maneuverability to escape predators. Many species of fish prefer to swim together in schools. This certainly makes them stand out from their surroundings, but schooling is a common and powerful adaptation for survival. When many fish school together, they protect each other by confusing predators with their sheer numbers. The anemone fish is another brightly colored fish which doesn't worry much about being eaten. That's because it has the protection of an anemone, an invertebrate resembling a lush carpet, but with powerful stinging cells. The fish has a protective mucus coating, which keeps it from being injured by the anemone. But other fish can be killed by the anemone's stinging tentacles. This is an example of symbiosis, another common adaptation for survival. This hermit crab has also developed a relationship with anemones. On its shell, the crab has several small anemones. While most anemones live their lives in one spot, anchored to the bottom like this common purple tip, the anemones on the hermit crab gain mobility by hitching a ride. Mobility gives the anemones the opportunity to feed on a wider variety of organisms than they would get by staying on the reef. In return, the crab gains the protection of the anemone's dangerous tentacles and is free to roam the bottom with confidence. On the coral reef, perhaps the most common form of symbiosis is far more subtle. Coral is a colonial organism, meaning that coral reefs are not one large organism, but rather many smaller ones called coral polyps all living together. The underlying coral skeleton, made from calcium carbonate, is excreted by the coral polyps ever so slowly. Thus, a reef is built over thousands of years. The coral polyps themselves are tiny little animals. They live in one place their entire lives and wait for food to drift by. Like tiny anemones, they capture plankton by extending tentacles covered with stinging cells. Many corals cannot catch enough prey to survive and grow in the clear waters of the tropics. Plankton is simply not as abundant as the coral would like. Many species of coral have solved this problem with a symbiotic relationship. These corals have multitudes of tiny, single-celled plants living in their tissues. The plants, called zooxanthellae, give many corals their greenish to brownish color, making the first-time observer sometimes think that the coral itself is a plant. The zooxanthellae, like all plants, have chlorophyll and utilize sunlight to produce sugars for their own energy needs. However, the coral shares in this production and gets some of its energy from the zooxanthellae. In return, the plants use the carbon dioxide and waste products given off by the coral to fuel their production. Another curious example of symbiosis is the goby and blind shrimp. The shrimp maintains a burrow, which it shares with one or two fish called gobies. The shrimp constantly removes sand and small rocks which fall into the entrance. In exchange for the housekeeping, the tiny fish protect the shrimp by serving as its eyes. Whenever danger approaches, the gobies retreat into the burrow. When the coast is clear, one or both gobies stands guard. The shrimp, keeping one of its long antennae in nearly constant contact with a goby, knows from the actions of the fish when the coast is clear. The remora, a fish with a suction cup on its head, attaches itself to larger animals for a free ride. It might seem that the remoras on this shark are parasites, but in fact this is another example of mutual symbiosis. A remora actually helps a shark by removing parasites from the shark's skin, which in turn provides a meal for the remora. Not all symbiotic relationships are mutualistic, benefiting both partners. For example, these pilotfish hang around sharks in order to get a free meal from the shark's leftover scraps. This has obvious benefits for the pilotfish, but not really for the shark. To the shark, the fish are probably just an annoyance. The ocean is filled with venomous animals, although they are usually much less dangerous than the popular legends would have us believe. Venom is another common adaptation for defense in the ocean. The jellyfish, which may look perfectly harmless, can be a very dangerous creature. Jellyfishes have venomous stinging cells in their tentacles, which are used to capture prey and defend against larger predators. While some jellyfishes are not very dangerous, others are among the most dangerous predators in the sea and are able to kill much larger animals on contact. Nonetheless, every creature has some predator, and the toxic jellyfish is no exception. Marine turtles can eat and digest many of the most powerful jellyfish without any hint of a stomachache. The award for the most venomous fish in the world goes to the stonefish, found in the tropical Indo-Pacific. Does it look familiar? Well, it should, because the stonefish is a relative of the scorpionfish we met earlier. The venomous spines on the dorsal surface of this animal can inject a venom powerful enough to kill humans. Fortunately, these fishes are very tolerant of harassment before they will attack. In fact, the only real threat they pose is when stepped on in shallow water. The lionfish, a close relative of the stonefish, also has a venomous defense system. Its beauty is deceiving, for an injury caused by the injection of venom from one of those spines can send a full-grown man to the hospital. Although many animals have venomous spines for protection, some creatures have enough spines that they don't really need the venom. The sea urchin is one such animal. The sea urchin gains ample protection from predators from the armor-like set of spines protruding in all directions. The fireworm is only a few inches long and looks harmless enough, but the coloration of this worm is a warning that it packs a punch. The fuzzy-looking exterior of the worm is in fact composed of thousands of tiny bristles, which can penetrate skin and break off, causing enormous pain. Sometimes the best defense is a quick retreat, and tube worms are among the quickest. A feather duster tube worm lives in a hole, but extends its delicate gills out to gather food particles and exchange oxygen in the water for carbon dioxide in its body. When a threat advances, the tube worm retracts into its hole instantly. During the day, a moray eel hides in a hole too, but the eel sleeps during the day. Moray eels have a different technique for survival. They are nocturnal. In order to find food, the moray hunts the reef at night, sticking its head into cracks and holes searching for sleeping fish. It doesn't usually take long for the moray to find a sleepy fish which isn't paying much attention and becomes dinner. Another nocturnal creature is the northern lobster. Although it hides from predators during the day, it roams the ocean floor at night in search of food. The lobster could be a formidable predator with its two powerful claws, but it is mostly a scavenger, feeding on just about anything it can find. This is another kind of adaptation, choice of foods. While some creatures are scavengers like the lobster, others are predators like sharks. The gray reef shark chooses to feed on fish, which makes it an upper food chain consumer. But not all larger creatures feed on animals which are high in the food chain. The manatee has evolved to feed only on plants. Its teeth and digestive system are optimized for the processing of this tough but very abundant food source. Fish like the gray angelfish also prefer an easy dinner. They nibble on sponges which grow on the reef. Very few animals can digest the tough fibers of the sponge, so the sponge is safe from predation by all but a few animals. This allows the sponges to grow without being eaten by every fish on the reef. For the fish that does eat sponges, it means that there will always be a good supply of sponges to eat. The sponge itself is a filter feeder, straining water through pores on its outer surface and extracting planktonic food particles as small as bacteria from the water. In this scene, a non-toxic yellow dye is used to illustrate how a sponge pumps and filters water. Although we have by no means seen all of the ways in which the creatures of the seas have adapted to their surroundings, we have seen some of the more common ways in which sea creatures survive. Some animals use camouflage to escape detection or to sneak up on their prey, while other animals have coloration which makes them stand out. Some creatures hide from predators, while others stay in groups out in the open, relying on protection in numbers. Some animals have dangerous spines or venom for protection. But even the most venomous creatures sometimes have predators. In order to survive, different animals have taken advantage of different food sources, some feeding at the top of the food chain and others at the bottom. So every animal is both predator and prey. And in the end, the outcome is a game where the survivors mate and pass on their successful genes to the next generation, who, through evolution, will continue the cycle of adaptation for survival.